Good morning. Good morning. We're going to get everyone back in from the exhibit hall, and we're going to start in just a few minutes. For those who are watching on live stream, we'll just be a few minutes. We'll get the this hall, everyone's seated, and we'll see you in 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you. All right, we're ready to go. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome. I'm Steve Berry, President and CEO of the Competitive Carriers Association, and we're so glad to have you today. I hope everyone got some breakfast, got to see some friends. Hopefully you got some coffee this morning. I'd also welcome those who are joining us via live stream. Welcome. Thanks for joining. I hope that we all had a productive day yesterday. We have even more lined up for you today. And please keep using the mobile app. Obviously, you get points. You'll end up being competitive for some nice prizes. May I remind you that the 2 most active users will win American Express gift cards. I'd like to thank the Pinnacle sponsors again. As you see on the side of the wall there, we have Ericsson, Interop Technologies, Mavenir, Nokia, T-Mobile, and TNS. Thank you all for their support. We have some great speakers lined up for you this morning. But first, let's take a moment to recognize the winners of CCA's 2021 Annual Achievement Awards. We do this every year. Each year, CCA recognizes outstanding members who have made significant contributions to the association and to the wireless industry as a whole. It's our chance to recognize and thank some of our members who have gone above and beyond in the past year. Now, as we announce this year's honorees, in light of this year's protocols, I will ask each of you, as I call your name, to just please stand up, hopefully acknowledge with a wave, so that everyone can see, but we'll not ask the recipients to come to the stage as we have in the past. So we'd like to recognize you, and we'll have an opportunity to deliver to you your award after the session. So So let's begin with the Outstanding Achievement Award, which is given to an individual from a carrier member who during the previous year made extraordinary contributions to both the wireless industry and CCA. And this year, the award goes to Brent Groom of HTC. Brent retired earlier this year after 30 years of dedicated service to HTC and the telecommunication industry. He served on CCA's board of directors, provided thoughtful insight from a small carrier perspective, and he regularly attended CCA events, Capitol Hill Day, and sessions like this. While Brent could not be here today with us, I believe he's tending his crop of ghost peppers somewhere in South Carolina as we speak. But we're very proud to recognize him for his many achievements and service at the CCA through the years. Congratulations, Brent. And next we have Outstanding Service Award. This award is presented to our carrier and associate members and may go to an individual or a company as a whole. And we present this award for outstanding service to the community, willingness to go beyond the normal call of duty, and for reflecting positively on the wireless industry. And this year we have two carrier winners. Our first carrier award winner is GCI. Maureen Moore and others from GCI, please stand. Thank you. We appreciate it. Each year, their program of GCI Gives provides $2 million in cash, grants, scholarships, and products to support more than 150 nonprofit organizations in Alaska. And over the past 5 years, GCI Gives has donated $500,000 to support suicide prevention. And GCI also provides each employee with 16 hours of paid time to donate their support to their favorite nonprofit charity. Congratulations, GCI. Good job. And now, our second carrier award goes to Cellcom. Mark Nazi, Cellcom, please. There you go. Thank you. Cellcom's commitment to the community service in 2020 included contributions to 504 unique programs, projects, and initiatives. Highlights include a cell phone recycling program that directed proceeds of the program to help the environment, scholarships to more than 20 high school students, funding projects with Habitat for Humanity and the YMCA Full Circle program, and more. I mean, these are prime examples of how CCA members, CCA carriers, give back to the community they serve. So it's our pleasure to present this award, and congratulations to Cellcom. Appreciate it. Now, our next award is the Nico Hamlet Associate Member of the Year Award. This award is named in honor of the late Nico Hamlet. Many of you may know the name and knew him personally. Nico was an executive at the American Roamer Company, which is now part of Ookla, and he was a good friend, loyal friend to many in the CCA family. We present this award as an associate member who has, in the past, made outstanding contributions and significantly benefited our industry in general and CCA specifically. And I'm very pleased to announce that the recipient of the 2021 CCA Nico Hamlet Associate Member of the Year Award is Mark Harms from Award Solutions. Mark, there's Mark. Thank you, sir. Mark hit the ground running last year when he took over the training course partnership with CCA. He's been instrumental in leading the Foundations in 5G and the Foundations in VoLTE courses that have, and has moderated numerous sessions over the past several years, certainly always garnering positive reviews. In fact, he's moderating a session later this afternoon, so you have a chance to see him yourself in action. So hopefully you can make the Award Solutions presentation. Thank you, Mark, for your contributions. Very much so. Now we turn to the Industry Innovation Award, and this award is presented annually to an individual and/or a company for outstanding innovative contributions to the wireless industry, whether through technology development, marketing techniques, or something else altogether different. The award honors a creative, forward-thinking achievement that is noteworthy throughout the industry. And this year, the award goes to both a carrier and associate member for their shared accomplishment. And our winners are U.S. Cellular and Ericsson. Thank you. U.S. Cellular and Ericsson. This spring, U.S. Cellular, Ericsson, Qualcomm Technologies, and Seago worked together in Janesville, Wisconsin, to successfully achieve a 5G extended range milestone over a millimeter wave on a commercial network. Now, these results were achieved on the U.S. Cellular's commercial network by applying Ericsson extended range functionality in their antenna integrated radio, their 5322 advanced antenna system. Is quite an achievement, a first nationwide, and we are proud to see such innovative CCA members working together. Congratulations on this impressive work, U.S. Cellular and Ericsson. And so thank you and thank everyone, and let's congratulate all of our award winners. Appreciate it. Now, since we're highlighting achievements, I would like to take a moment to recognize the individuals who have most recently completed the Foundations in 5G and the Foundations in VoLTE courses with Award Solutions. Part of our mission is education, and the courses have been very successful, given a number of people who have earned a certificate to date. So I think it's working quite well, and so congratulations to all the graduates. We appreciate you taking advantage of Award Solutions. If you haven't had the opportunity to take advantage of the courses, please check them out. I think you'll be appreciative of the CCA members get a discount also. Now for this morning's keynote session, first speaker is Anand Akundi, who is the interim head of customers unit regional carriers at Ericsson. He has a broad background with more than 22 years of experience in wireless and wireline industries, spent in the areas of radio, core, OSS, BSS, and services. His presentation today is 5G for rural operators. He also serves on the CCA board. So show me the money is his topic, and I think that's a topic everyone would like to hear about. So without further ado, please welcome Anand Akundi.
Hey, good morning. My name is Anand Akundi. I'm the VP of Wireless Sales for regional carriers at Ericsson. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but thank you for the opportunity to talk to you. Today I want to spend some time talking about 5G and specifically monetization of 5G. That's why the slide, the presentation's title, Show Me the Money, so it should be a fun session. I want to start off talking about what's different with 5G. So 5G is different. It was built from ground up to be different. It's very use case driven. And this slide kind of lays out the opportunities that lies in the fact that 5G is different, and it was built on a use case by use case basis. So some of the things I want to cover is 4G and LTE was more consumer focused. So if you think about it, the focus was how do I get coverage and capacity out to consumers. 5G gives you the opportunity to customize offerings for businesses and government users. And what that essentially means is you can do things like smart cities, manufacturing, smart manufacturing, and things like that a lot easier with 5G than you could have done with 4G. The focus of LTE used to be more on mobile broadband. 5G gives you the opportunity to do fixed wireless broadband. I think that's a really important facet to have in your offerings because it allows you to go out and provide fiber-like connectivity using wireless, which is fantastic to give the appropriate coverage in rural America. The other difference is we're moving from universal use, one pipe covers everything, to business and mission critical use. So you can do a lot with 5G networks. The same 5G network could be customized to support use cases for business and mission critical type uses. And it also gives you the opportunity of moving from public networks to private and hybrid networks. You can deploy 5G as a private network for factories and other use cases like that. Again, another opportunity to monetize your network. And lastly, what I want to talk about here is urban and suburban coverage versus rural. And what I want to stress here is when you look at older Gs and the transition of technologies, 3G to 4G to other Gs, typically the rural America has been last to the race. Yeah, the focus has not been in providing coverage of the latest and greatest in rural America. I think 5G changes the paradigm, and part of that has to do with what we saw with the pandemic. What the pandemic exposed is the fact that having connectivity is not something that's want, but it's a need. It's a need that needs to be fulfilled, and I think 5G will enable us to better plan to ensure that all of America, including rural America, has the coverage, has the connectivity that allows them to do the business and do the education that's required. Moving on, what makes 5G different? Starting from the middle, cellular wireless connectivity is the bread and butter. You guys obviously are very familiar with what that means. 5G does have some enhancements to make it better than what 4G had to offer. Things like latency is much lower than what you had in 4G. Things like speed obviously is a lot faster when you move to 5G. So the base connectivity itself is getting better when you move to 5G. But there's adjacent technologies that come with 5G that are complementary to 5G that make this a completely different user experience, allowing you to offer new offerings. Things like cloud computing. Cloud computing, edge computing is a very critical part of 5G. It allows you to push the decision making, the computing, the intense computing that's required out to the edge, so you can give your users a better user experience and allow use cases that wouldn't have been possible if cloud or edge computing was not available. Internet of Things, that's been there for a long, long time, but 5G was really built to enable IoT. So connected everything, whether you're talking about smart meters or connected cars, 5G was built with this use case in mind, allowing you to have low-powered, low-cost devices that you can roll out to do things like precision agriculture, which may be applicable in the area that you serve. Artificial intelligence, augmented reality, again, two adjacent technologies to 5G, but they work hand in hand to enable some of the use cases that will enable some of the monetization things that we'll be talking about. So again, 5G is great. It gives you better speed, better connectivity, better latency, but if you marry them with the other technologies that are on this slide, it really makes for an amazing user experience and enables you to offer services that were not possible when we had 4G. So what are the use cases that 5G enables? So there's a lot on the slide. I'm not going to cover everything. But the point I really want to make here is if you look at the various industries that are listed on this, every industry is touched by 5G. And it enables a better user experience, a better use case that can be served because 5G is available. If you look at transport, fleet management, software downloads as an example, automotive, if you look at smart home, all the trackers and smart home wearables and things like that come into smart home. Entertainment, 360 camera, things that you could do at stadiums because you have 5G connectivity at stadiums, 360 view of stadiums, utilities, smart meters, manufacturing. So 5G really enables a slew of new services that could be offered to your customer. And if you look at the list, a lot of these are things that you as a rural carrier can provide to your customers and are applicable in the service area that you serve. So it's important to think about these use cases when you're thinking about going to the next technology because, like I said, 5G is a very use case driven technology. It's very important for you to realize or strategize, I should say, on what you want to do with 5G so that you have the appropriate technology and skill set to support the use cases that you're going after in your market. So where's the opportunity when you look at enterprises? If you look at the numbers, the North American CSP opportunity just related to 5G B2B business is about $183 billion by 2030, according to some reports. Now, where's this $183 billion coming from? Healthcare is a big component of it. There's $39 billion that people anticipate out of healthcare. Things like remote patient monitoring, teledoc. Teledoc really taken off due to the pandemic that we're facing. Smart health monitors, things like that have really taken up. Smart manufacturing is another area where there's a lot of opportunity to do automation using 5G. We ourselves have a smart factory here in Louisville, Texas that we use 5G for. So we're actually manufacturing 5G equipment that's used by our customers at this factory. And we've really tested 5G in terms of how best to use it to automate the factory and get some efficiencies out of using 5G. Energy and utilities is another area where there's a lot of opportunity to use 5G to service some of the use cases that energy and utilities have. Some of the things that are not on this slide that also, I believe, are very big opportunities for your customer base, especially your small and medium business. I think the capability of having a network that you can customize based on the use case you're trying to serve enables you to go serve your small and medium customer base with offerings that were not possible when we had 4G. So from a monetization perspective, from an enterprise opportunity perspective, it's a really large pool that's available, and a large pool that's available even to the rural carrier community that I'm talking to today. Moving on, what about consumer? What are other operators doing in terms of consumers? So connectivity is bread and butter. So enhanced mobile broadband, you get better broadband experience because it's 5G. Fixed wireless access, we talked about a little bit earlier, but it's again another opportunity to go serve your customer set with great speeds. Where fiber may not be a viable option, where you can go serve the community's need to give them broadband access. Adjacent to that are core digital services, things like virtual reality, augmented reality, hi-fi music, cloud gaming. All these are offerings that are seeing a lot of success in the market right now, cloud gaming. So this is stuff that operators across the globe are actually selling to their customers and finding a lot of stickiness with. And then adjacent digital services, things like in-car connectivity, m-commerce, in-venue digital services, are all things that really are things that you can do today with 5G. So again, there's an enterprise play here for the 5G, and there's a consumer play here with 5G, and there's lots of opportunities to monetize the investment that you're making in 5G. Now, for you to really be successful, there's two main things that need to be done. I think as a company, you really need to determine where you want to play. I think strategic intent is very important. Where do you want to play? What do you want to service? What industry is your focus? Because there's a lot of industries you can go into, but what makes the best sense for you and your market that you're serving? Is it enterprise? Is it consumer? If it's enterprise, what sort of enterprise? And then once you figure out where you want to play and what your strategic intent is, it's how do you go to that market? What's your go-to-market strategy? What are the commercial models? The commercial models you use today are not applicable to the use cases that I just laid out. What's your portfolio that you want to offer? What's your operating model? And the three pillars that kind of underlie what I just talked about are: do you have the business capabilities, new business models, attractive business models? How do you go to market? Do you have the technical capabilities? As I said, the strategic intent will drive what technology you'll deploy. 5G is a large term. There's a lot of things you can choose to do or not do when you talk about 5G, and the business model should drive what technical capabilities you want to deploy in your network. And most importantly, in my opinion, is operational capabilities. It's all good to have the business capabilities and technical capabilities, but do you have the operational capability to be successful in this market? Do you have the right skill set? The skill sets needed for edge computing are very different from doing RF engineering. Do you have the right leadership and culture to drive the change that's required to be successful in this market. So it's more than just technology is kind of the takeaway here. Think about business capabilities, think about operational capabilities, just as well as when you're talking about technical capabilities. So in summary, there's 4 points I would like to leave you with. One is the consumer market is an attractive 5G revenue opportunity, and it would take a little bit of thought and proactiveness on your part to kind of see what can I do beyond just providing SIM cards? What's the opportunity for the consumer space that I can monetize on because 5G brings with it some capabilities that didn't exist before? Enterprise and SMB, as you saw, provides the biggest potential to monetize your market. It's typically not the area that the rural carrier community has spent time in, but if you put in the right technical and operational capabilities and business capabilities in place, I think there's a lot that you could do from a monetization perspective in enterprise. You really should spend some time looking at use cases and digital services as a way of differentiating your 5G offerings, to say what's different about my offering versus somebody else by thinking of how you bundle different things together. And lastly, diversification of revenue source beyond connectivity is crucial. Connectivity, this gives you an opportunity to become more than a connectivity player. What can you do in FWA? What can you do in edge computing? What's your offering in small and medium business is really very important for you to think about. So net, I think there's a great opportunity here from a 5G perspective to monetize and do things differently with 5G. And I hope you're as excited about this challenge as I am. Again, sorry I couldn't be there in person, and I hope you have a great show.
Very good. Thank you, Anand and Ericsson. And carriers are always looking for new revenue opportunities and sources, so we really appreciate Anand's and Ericsson's views on 5G. So thank you. Now let's go to the next presentation. Joining me next on stage is Steve Zitnik, Executive Vice President and CTO of Interop Technologies. And he's joined by Chris Wright, Vice President of Product Management at Syniverse. They are here with us today to discuss the changes surrounding mobile messaging for 5G, including important updates on the global RCS Rich Communication Suite ecosystem, certainly an issue with which every carrier needs to know. So can Steve and Chris please come out and join me on stage? Just take, oh, here we go. Good to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you.
It's great to have two of our longtime members working together, so I'm going to turn the stage over to you guys and let you go at it, and I'm very interested in the topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, good morning, everybody, and hopefully everybody has had a chance to have a little breakfast, a cup of coffee, and get over last night's festivities. We're going to talk today about a subject that's very near and dear to my heart, and I know Chris's as well. We're talking about RCS, of course, but we want to talk about it not so much from a technical perspective or a business model perspective or things along those lines, but more so about what's actually happening in the industry. There's been a whole host of press releases and news that have come out around RCS over the last year or so, I would say. And what we're going to try and do today is separate a little bit of what you read in the press and what folks say to what folks do, which oftentimes are two very, very different things, and talk about what's actually happening in the ecosystem now. So with that, we'll get started and get the boat on the road. Chris, where do you want to start?
One thing we'd like to do is if anybody has any questions or comments, please just raise your hand. They'll walk mics around and they'll gladly answer any questions you may have. Let's kick it off by talking about what's going on in North America. What's happening with the big three? We hear a lot of rumors that they're doing different things with Google. Let's kind of get down to some of the facts. Steve, what are you hearing?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of press out there, and oftentimes in our modern society, sometimes the press isn't always necessarily facts. But nonetheless, there have been some very carefully worded, I would say, press releases surrounding what the tier ones are doing with Google. You saw both T-Mobile Verizon and AT&T recently make announcements that they were using the Google messaging client as the default client on their Android devices, and that is true. But the way, at least I've heard it from some of the operators, some of the folks we deal with, is it appears in the media like Google has won the game, like the tier ones have capitulated, I guess would be a word, and just gone down the Google path. And I want to assure you that nothing can be further from the truth. What the tier ones have done is sign what's called a marketing agreement with Google. And under that marketing agreement, they have access to the Google client, but for use with their own backends. Some of these agreements that I've seen have some transition periods to move some of the Google Guest Cloud folks back off of the Google platforms onto the operator control platforms. But most definitely, all three of the big three operators are fully committed to RCS and are fully committed to launching their own RCS. We see this in Europe as well. There's Vodafone, Telefonica, those operators, they're all using the Google client. It's confusing because Google's public position, as announced at the MEF meetings and GSMA and a few other things, is that they would not ever allow the Google messaging client to be used with an operator-controlled back-end. And that announcement came out, I would say, October of last year.
That's a good question. Let's talk a little bit more about what Google's announced. Google's come out and said many things. That they're not going to provide interconnections with hubs. They're not going to do any more interconnections with wireless operators other than the big operators that they've already been connected to. And also the client whole issue. So what is fact and what is fiction around some of the stuff that's out there about Google?
Yeah, it's really hard to say, and I think that there's two sets of facts, I think. As much as I hate to admit it, I think that, in this case, size does matter. They basically, for the global tier ones and the North American tier ones, they have made accommodation for those operators where they will allow the client use with the operator-controlled backend. As far as peering goes, they have also said publicly that they would not peer with any operator-controlled RCS platforms. However, this is one of those where fact doesn't seem to be, true with the story that's being told. So I don't know, Chris.
We do have a little connection out there. We do process about 20 billion messages a month through our systems, and we provide reach to a lot of the tier one operators in North America to everybody behind Google. So factually, not necessarily accurate. We do have connections up, and they've been up since December 2019.
I think, yeah. And as far as the CCA is concerned, Interop in partnership with Syniverse provides that same interconnectivity. So rest assured, when you go with your own RCS platforms, connectivity with the tier ones, connectivity with Google, that's all already in place.
Yeah, so you will get global reach if you connect in with both Interop's and Syniverse's platforms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's change a little bit the subject and talk a little bit more about some of the big three, what they've been doing. They've been talking a lot about CCMI for the past few years. We hear a lot of things about that's going to be rolled out and released and everything. I think there's been some changes. So you want to fill us in a little bit of what's going on with CCMI?
Yeah, just a little bit of a change. So CCMI, for those of you who are not aware, was a joint venture created by T-Mobile, Sprint at the time, Verizon and AT&T. And the purpose of the joint venture was to leverage a universal map platform or messaging as a platform in order to provide a single point of connectivity to all of the tier one operators for enterprise business messaging, things along those lines. So the CCMI was instantiated as a joint venture and was working through the technical process of getting the map platform up. That was actually done. A good friend of mine, Neil McGrath, was the chief architect at CCMI for a couple of years there, and they actually had the platform up and running. but the overall CCMI project was kind of hampered, I guess, by the political infighting, really, between what are three very fierce competitors at this point. Really, honestly, they were 2 years into the project, and they still hadn't appointed a CEO for the JV. So it's kind of hard to drive the ship if no one's at the wheel. And eventually that kind of fell apart due to the infighting. But the important thing is that each of those operators that I just mentioned are now either have stood up or in the process of standing up their own map platforms. So though they are not doing it together anymore, they are each doing it individually for their own networks. And I think one of the problems that we see is that whole CCMI initiative, if you will, put the kind of the business messaging in the US back maybe 12 or 18 months. And what we see in Europe is very much further along the curve as far as the monetization piece of RCS goes. So it's not that the market isn't there or the market isn't materializing. We were just a little hampered here in the US by the whole CCMI fiasco, as I call it.
So to roll into more about what we could do with the CCA members around business messaging, they need some type of map platform, whether they use ours, our core, Google's core, whoever's core they're using, they're going to have some type of map interface. That map interface is going to require to have multiple interconnection points. In order to get to Verizon, for example, you're going to need a southbound or a northbound interface. In order to get to the Google Guest Cloud, you're going to need a interface into Google. Or you're going to need a different type of connection if you want to have your service managed for Google. You're going to need more of the Roma interface. Right. So there's multiple interfaces. So when you're talking to vendors out there to help you, make sure that you understand, number one, what the interconnections look like and who's going to give you the maximum reach so you could reach everybody. Because the biggest thing you're going to need to do is focus on your enterprise customers. You want to be more than just a pipe to your subscriber base. You could actually upgrade your capabilities and become an aggregator essentially for the enterprises and reach more than your subscriber base, but give them reach to anybody else that's out there.
Yeah, that's absolutely critical. And the other piece of the equation that needs to be in place is the ability, which of course we have, but is fairly unique in the industry at this point, is the ability to differentiate between subscribers that are on a network that are part of the Google Guest Cloud and those that are part of the operator subscriber base. Those are very different things. The routing of that is very difficult, but due to the capabilities that Syniverse has particularly, we're able to differentiate between those two, and that's important when you're looking at let's say a Verizon who has a number of folks on the Google Guest Cloud and a number of people on their own cloud. You need to keep those two islands connected while you're repatriating the subscribers. So it's a critical piece of functionality, particularly now, and one that you should be definitely looking for.
So based on everything that's going on in North America today, what are your recommendations for the CCA audience on what they could do for RCS and how they might want to be able to take it forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the lessons that we're learning from the tier ones here in the United States, as well as most of the global group operators, is that they are doing their own RCS, despite what you might hear from Google and others. They're definitely on board with this. You know, the green button experience, there are two green buttons on the phone, right? One is messaging, one is voice. And those are kind of the bastions of carrier services. And I think what we're seeing globally and in the US is that the operators are simply not willing to give that up. They're simply not willing to cede that market entirely to Google. It's a very profitable market. If you look at just the A2P SMS business, so one-time passwords, all of the A2P stuff that you get, that's a $30 billion market. And that's current numbers and what the operators are doing right now. RCS is a more expensive version of that. More expensive, I mean, to the enterprise. So that market is going to continue to grow. And I think that the tier ones are saying pretty clearly at this point that they are not willing to cede that. And my recommendation would be neither should you. It's a core piece. But even with that said, in the worst case scenario, break the glass scenario, where you might have Google come in and usurp your subscribers into the Google Guest Cloud. I call it the Hotel California Cloud because you can never check out. But even in that case, the operator should be focused on the MAP platform then. Yep. Because the MAP platform is the monetization piece. That's where you're going to make your money. And we have the capabilities and the agreements to connect that into even the Google backend.
And you have the capability to maintain and request that control. Even if you're, like Steve was saying, if your subscribers are on Google Guest Cloud, you could actually go in, manage the interconnects, manage the type of traffic that's been approved to go into your customer base. You have that right to do that with your customers. We'd be more than happy to walk you through any of those different options that you may have to figure out how to take care of it. On that, what I'd like to do is, Steve, do you have any comments based on your traveling around the world with me for many, many years talking about RCS to operators globally? Yeah. What are your closing thoughts that you have about the industry and where it's going with RCS?
Yeah, I think it's important, right? I think that all of the tier ones, as I mentioned, globally, are maintaining their control over their own messaging environment. Funny enough, even the operators who were initially, early adopters of the Google Cloud, so there's some of the folks in Europe we're talking to, and Latin America, are now looking at options to come off of that. They want their subscribers back. And so it's important to do that. And the thing that concerns me from the CCA perspective is that kind of comment I made earlier about size matters. It shouldn't. It shouldn't. One of the things that I would encourage you all to do, we have this great forum here at CCA, and Steve and Kim and the group who work for us all on Capitol Hill. I can tell you that there are discussions going on. I have been involved at the DOJ level, at the State Attorney General level, surrounding this topic, because it's not just CCA carriers, it's all carriers under a certain size that Google will work with. And there is a very, very sympathetic ear out there right now, as far as the regulators go, to listen and to do something about this. And I would strongly, strongly encourage you to raise your voice. Now, whether you decide to go Google, which I think is a mistake, or decide to do your own thing with RCS, that choice should be yours, not Google's. And I would strongly encourage you to move forward with the CCA, go to Steve, talk about it, and let's raise the issue on the Hill. The issue is already raised, but lend your voice to it. And I would strongly encourage that.
Thanks. If there's anything else you need, would like to talk to us, please feel free. Steve and I are always available.
Absolutely.
Please ask your questions if you have anything.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. It's great to see two CCA members working together to help find solutions for our small carriers and regional carriers. I suggest you at least address the issue and talk to your CTOs and others about how this may affect you. It could be a fairly significant revenue stream. Next, and rounding out our keynote program, is Loris Zaia, Vice President of Major Accounts for Tier 2 and Tier 3 carriers at Mavenir. And Loris is here to discuss the economics and flexibility of open vRAN solutions using cloud-native deployment models for the rural market. And all of us are interested in hearing how to deploy, manage rural networks effectively and efficiently and cost efficiently. So Please welcome Loris to the stage, and we can't wait to hear from. Here you go. Thank you, Loris, to the stage. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Steve, and thanks for having us. I really appreciate it. I'm going to talk about Open RAN, and I'll talk some of the economics, but really, you know, as I spent the last 17 years with Ericsson, who's a big supplier of RAN equipment, and one of the market leaders, and you know, I decided about a year and a half ago to join this innovative, smaller company called Mavenir, and I had to sort of go through the rationalization in my own mind. You know, why would you go from, you know, a very safe, big player that's a leader in the market to somebody who's just sort of trying to break into this Open RAN space? Now, Mavenir is much more than Open RAN, but certainly that was the main reason why, you know, I was interested in joining this organization. So let me tell you a little bit about Mavenir and what we do. So Mavenir is really a software DNA company, right? We basically run most of our applications on, you know, web scale kind of platforms, containerized Kubernetes kind of stuff, and we're doing the same thing with Open RAN. So the company's DNA started with, you know, IMS messaging and packet core, and bringing those platforms into, you know, fully virtualized instances, and then later moving them more to a containerized. And now pretty well all our applications are fully containerized. You know, you can run them on a private web scale platform. You can run it on a public web scale platform like AWS and Google and so forth. So that's a little bit about Mavenir. We're probably not what you'd consider a startup anymore. We're approaching 5,000 people, about 800 million of revenue. So we're starting to become, you know, I would say a mid-sized player that is a challenger in the market for some of the tier one OEMs. You know, we have about 250 service provider customers globally across 120 countries. So, you know, we're becoming a pretty substantial player. You know, one of the things that I saw as I came here is, you know, there's really, if you look at what's happened in North America, especially in the US in the last few years, there's really not a lot of US-based telecom technology providers, especially in the RAN space. There's really two players, right? And with Huawei no longer being in the picture, we think as Mavenir, this is where we can step in, especially in the rural markets where, you know, with what's going on right now with the rip and replace program. You know, we think we got economics that is comparable to, you know, there's a reason why a lot of the operators went to, you know, Huawei and ZTE is because it was economically driven. Their CapEx, their OpEx, you know, was more compelling. And certainly we think we can step into that spot, because if you look at the economics, and I'll share some numbers with you later in my presentation, we are a much more cost-effective solution, not only from a CapEx perspective, but also from an OpEx perspective. And that's really the thing to consider as you guys are looking at, you know, why should you consider let's call it a newer approach of how to build a RAN system, right? A lot of people call this new technology. It really isn't new technology. It's just a new way to do it with different and open interfaces by completely disaggregating the hardware and the software. So you're no longer locked into one vendor, and you can choose and pick the best in breed and the best cost and the best economics for your business. So as I mentioned, it's not really a new technology. It's a shift in the design and how we build networks, right? We're really talking about diversifying the supply chain so that you have more choice. You know, we run everything on COTS equipment, so it's, you know, Dell type servers kind of stuff. And in terms of the radios, we have our own radios, but we're also partnering with a lot of third parties so we can bring a much larger supply chain of radios to the market as well. Like I said, today it's really limited to two players in North America, and you know, we're trying to open up that supply chain so you've got more choice. This is really about choice and having the ability to pick and choose best in breed. And just foster more competition and drive better economics. That's I guess the most compelling reasons. You know, we're a US-based company, and again, if you look at the major OEMs that you can buy a RAN from today, none of them are US-based companies, right? So, you know, this is also supporting US industry by looking at technologies like like Open RAN, because you'll see, and I'll cover it in another slide, most of the ecosystem that builds these Open RAN systems are US-based companies. And I think that's an important thing to consider, not only encouraging competition, but, also fostering openness in the interfaces of how you build these networks. So this is kind of the approach, right? So it's a software-driven approach. There's really, from a technology perspective, everything we do in virtualized RAN, Open RAN, is really still driven in terms of definition by 3GPP, right? So you hear, Open RAN is a brand new technology. It really isn't a brand new technology. It's just a different approach of how we do things. A lot of it is more cloud native, so you can have more choice in terms of, how you build it, how you dimension it, where you put your various, components in the network, and I'll step through some of that. But it's really fundamentally not a new technology. It's still using radios like you are used to working with today in various frequencies. Instead of a baseband, we have what we call a CUDU architecture, so that you can take all that software and run it on open stack kind of systems. It's not proprietary. So that's really the fundamental difference that we're bringing to the table. And because of that, we're able to change some of the economics, right? Because now you can basically, if you want to, buy it in piece parts, right? You don't have to buy your RAN from one supplier, software, hardware, and all the features. You can start breaking it apart and bidding it out and trying to get some better economics out of how you build this network. Or you can also buy everything from one supplier. But the key thing here is you have choice, right? You choose how you want to do this thing. And just because you chose vendor A at the beginning doesn't mean you can't switch to vendor B, C, or D somewhere down the line. Whereas today, with the way we're building these RAN systems, you're really locked in for a good period of time. Once you make a selection on which particular two vendors that you're going to build your system on. So just a little bit on, as you can see, the architecture is really, here's the difference. In a traditional RAN system, you've got, an eNode B with radios, antennas, and at the bottom of the tower, you'll have a baseband unit. All that equipment is all sourced from one supplier. There's no separation, there's no open interfaces. CPRI is a dedicated closed interface that the software and the hardware all has to come from the same supplier. So basically what we've done with Open RAN is we've opened the interface in the front hall so that the hardware that you use at the bottom of the tower, what we call a distribution unit, right, which is basically part of the functionality that you would get of a baseband unit, sits at the bottom of the tower, but it runs on COTS type hardware. It's not a proprietary piece of hardware. And the radios that you hook up at the top of the tower can come from a vendor of your choice. If you have a certain supplier that you want to use for a particular radio, the ecosystem is starting to become more and more pervasive out there in terms of frequencies of radios. We are building our own portfolio as well, because not all the radios were available from third-party vendors. So, but again, you have choice. You can either buy it all from one supplier, or you can then start looking at, hey, I want to bid this out and get the best economics for the various components that I'm going to buy. But ultimately, it's fundamentally not a lot different than what you do today. It's just, again, we open the interfaces to give you choice in terms of who you can choose for in the future. And if you decide somewhere down the line that you want to use a different software vendor because they got better economics, or there's certain features that they're bringing to the table, it's not a wholesale change. Like today, when you do the rip and replace for the Huawei gear, you got to rip it all out because it's all a closed system. You can't just change the software. If Open RAN was available 10 years ago and people would have started building these networks on that platform, you probably could have just changed out the baseband units at the bottom, because that's where all the software is, and keep the radios up there, which would have saved millions and billions of dollars of not having to go climb all these towers and change all these radios out, right? So that's really what this thing is all about. You hear a lot of noise in the system about, well, it's new, and there's not a lot of deployments. But what we're seeing in the industry is a lot of uptake on the idea that this is where the industry is going, this is where the future of RAN is going to be. And now we're starting to see it in the numbers, right? So we're starting to see Open RAN become more pervasive. We're starting to see operators publicly announce Open RAN. You've seen a big one here in the US with Dish. They're the fourth largest operator. Everything they're doing in 5G is all Open RAN, and they can choose whatever software provider they want to use. And you see they've got a multitude of different vendors that they've got in their network, and they're putting it together themselves, and they're doing a lot of the system integration work. But we also offer a full turnkey system integration if smaller operators may not want to get into that, right? They may not want to be the system integrator. That's fine. Again, you have the choice, right, of buying everything from one or another. And recently, Del Oro, this was just about a week ago, recently came out and they bumped up their revenue forecast by 50% as they see Open RAN gaining steam in the market. So I think it's starting to show up in the numbers. Open RAN and virtualized RAN, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because I want to cover some of the economics. Mavenir's got a pretty good set of customers publicly announced. You can see them in the bottom. Recently we announced Triangle, which is a small operator in Montana who's decided to basically do their entire Huawei rip with us. And we're doing a turnkey build for them, right from the core, the RAN, the system integration, making sure the radios work with the software we're delivering, and all the services associated with it. So, that's a little bit about us and what we're doing in that space. This shows a little bit about the deployment scenarios and the fact that, you can literally take what's called a distribution unit, which you would know as a baseband unit in the traditional space, and you can decide if you don't want to collocate that in the bottom of the tower and you got fiber with switched Ethernet, you could potentially start centralizing the distribution units in your data centers or POPs, right? And that could deliver much better economics because you can put hardware together to run multiple DUs. So it opens up a lot more deployment scenarios than the traditional RAN approach. We also have a web scale platform that we deliver. So everything we build on is, based on web scale, Kubernetes, and we offer that as a platform. It'll run on AWS or Google. We also will run on, other platforms such as Red Hat or VMware. That's really up to you as a choice, but we also have a complete web scale platform. I talked about this a little earlier. This is kind of you can see there's a lot of different players, you see a lot of US companies in this list of radio vendors, CU/DU vendors, and cloud platforms, right? So this is the ecosystem, and this is just a small sample, and it's growing every day. Let me talk a little about, I want to cover this. I've just got about a minute left. I want to make sure I cover the cost. This is public information. The Fidelity catalog was published by the FCC related to the rip and replace. And you can go in there and you can validate this information on your own, right? You don't have to believe my slide, but if you look at the savings in Open RAN, we're seeing an average of about 36% overall. And if you go into the catalog, you'll see that they have, for the traditional and also Open RAN, they've got kind of a low range, they got a high range, and they got an average, right? And then we also ran up a calculation. This was based on a 50-site network, building everything into it, core, RAN, and the services. And you can see with a traditional vendor, it averages somewhere around, $26 million to build this 50-site network. An example from one of our competitors that presented at the RWA showed about a $21 million cost to build this. And when we look at doing it with our systems in Open RAN, it's about $11 million build. And then we did some calculations on the overall TCO with 5 years of OpEx, which is another very important thing. You'll see that if you come to us and get some quotes, the OpEx is a lot lower. So the economics are compelling. In this case, we were showing a 46% savings over traditional systems. So that's one of the main reasons I think you need to consider it. And I think if you talk to us, you'll see that these numbers are real, and you might want to consider starting to look at how do I start building these systems on an open and more flexible and cloud-native environment. So that's it. I've got some more slides, but I think I'm out of time. So if you want to learn more about Open RAN, what we're doing at Mavenir, please feel free to contact me, and we can have a further discussion on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Loris. Appreciate it. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, get this. Again, thank you, Loris. Really appreciate it, and thank you for your thoughts on using ORAN technologies and deployment to connect rural America. We're all interested. I'd like to just take a moment here. This will close out the morning session here. Please take a minute to fill out the session evaluation on your mobile app. Your feedback really is important. Let us know what we did right, maybe what we did wrong, maybe what we should do next time. We'd love your thoughts. I want to remind you we have some excellent sponsored seminars beginning at 10:30. There's many great topics out there. I think you'll find it difficult to choose which one you'd like to attend, but certainly encourage you to go to as many as you can. The exhibit hall opens at 12:30. We'll be serving lunch at 1 o'clock, and additional seminars will begin after 1 o'clock. So please check those out also. The hall is open until 5 o'clock today, this afternoon. Please make some of the time to go visit the exhibitors. We really appreciate their presence. And don't forget to participate in the Passport for Prizes program, which go to the booths that are participating and have an opportunity to win some really great prizes. The exhibit hall runs from 3 to 5 this afternoon. Hopefully you will put that on your schedule. We're giving away a lot of great prizes today, the last day of the show. Gift cards, make sure you're there to see the money we're going to give away, encouraging you to stick with us throughout the evening. Thanks again to our Pinnacle sponsors. You see them listed up there. Without their help, we couldn't do this. Ericsson, Interop Technologies, Mavenir, Nokia, T-Mobile, and TNS. So thank you. I hope you have a productive day, and we look forward to seeing you in Tampa, Florida in the spring. So safe travels. Have an enjoyable day. Thank you so very much.